also to those viewing in on social media and on cable television. I now call this fourth day, fourth regular session to order. Please all rise for a moment of silence. Prayer. Thank you. Oh. Thank you, colleagues. I'd now like to recognize the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Fata. Representative Fatal.
Present.
Representative Selena Babauta.
Presente.
Representative Sheila Babauta.
Gagia.
Representative Joel Kamatsu.
Gaya.
Representative Vicente Kamatsu.
Present.
Representative Demapan.
Stiga.
Representative Flores.
Present.
Representative Guerrero.
Stiga.
Representative Lizama.
Gaigia.
Representative Magovnia. Representative Magalonia.
Present.
Representative Probes.
Present.
Representative Christina Sablan.
Present.
Representative Jampo Sablan.
Istiga.
Representative Nicolas.
Present.
Representative Staffler.
Present.
Mr. Speaker.
Hello.
Representative Yang Tamay.
Nyangi.
Representative Yumo.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, 19 members are present and 1 member is absent.
Thank you, clerk. With 19 members present, that constitutes a quorum. Please note that Representative Roy Adda is hereby excused. Before we move to item number 2, I'd like to recognize the floor leader for suspension of rules. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to suspend Rule 3, Section 6, Notice of Session to include unnumbered bills, resolution, and communications not filed with the clerk's office in 72 hours prior to session notice. So move.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made by the floor leader to suspend Rule 3, Section 6, and it has been seconded. Discussion? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Fatal.
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta.
Hunggan.
Representative Sheila Babauta.
Again.
Representative Joel Kamatsu.
Hunggan.
Representative Vicente Kamatsu.
Yes.
Representative Damapan. Representative Flores.
Yes.
Representative Guerrero. Representative Lizama.
Hunggan.
Representative Magovnia. Representative Magalonia.
Yes.
Representative Probes.
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan.
Yes.
Representative Jampo Sablan.
Hunggan.
Representative Nicolas.
Yes.
Representative Staffler.
Again.
Representative Yang Tamay.
Aware.
Representative Yumo.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Again.
Mr. Speaker, all 19 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With all 19 members present voting yes, the motion hereby passes. Thank you, colleagues. We now move down to item number 2, public comments. The floor is open. Please state your name and the entity that you represent. You have 3 minutes. Looks like there is no one in the gallery or in the lobby for public comments. So we'll go ahead and move down to item number 3, adoption of journals. I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 3, adoption of journals, we have 1 item for adoption, first day, 4th regular session journal dated August 27, 2022.
Thank you, clerk. I now recognize the floor leader for the motion to adopt the journal. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to adopt first day, 4th regular session journal dated August 27, 2022. So move.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to adopt first day, 4th regular session journal dated August 27, 2022. It has been seconded. Any discussion? Ready? Okay, members, all in favor to adopt the journal, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The journal is hereby adopted. Thank you, colleagues. We now move down to item number 4, introduction of bills, and I recognize Representative Denita Yangtamay.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you. I'm officially introducing House Bill number 22-117 to amend 2 CMC subsections 5631 and 5109 to authorize Gilnet, locally known as Teching, in the 3rd Senatorial District and provide additional penalties for any violations. Pre-filed by myself, and I welcome others and to, yes, to join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Yanktamai. House Bill number 22-117 will be referred to the committee in NR. We now move down to the next bill, and I recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. I am introducing House Bill number 22-118 to amend Title IV, Division 9 of the Commonwealth Code by adding a new Chapter 9 to establish an apprenticeship program within the CNMI and to repeal 3 Commonwealth Code 1351 through 1358 in their entirety and for other purposes. Introduced by myself and my colleague from Precinct 5, Richard Lizama, and excuse me, I invite all my colleagues to join in. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Your bill will be referred to the Committee on JGO and Education. Colleagues, any other unnumbered bills like to be introduced? All right, ready? We'll go ahead and move down to House local bills. And I'd like to recognize Representative Patrickson Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to officially introduce House Local Bill number 22-37 to make limited appropriations for the personnel and operation of the Tinian Casino Gaming Control Commission for fiscal year 2023 pursuant to 10 CMC subsection 2581, Tinian Local Law 21-9, and 1 CMC subsection 1405A, Public 11-17, pre-filed by myself. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative San Nicolas. We now move down to the next local bill, and I recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. I am introducing House Local Bill number 2238 to reappropriate $63,749 allotted under Saipan Local Law 20-18 and $42,551.45 allotted under Saipan Local Law 20-24 and for other purposes, introduced by myself, and I invite my colleague to jump in too. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. We now move down to the next House local bill, and I recognize Representative Donald Mangloy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Officially introducing House Local Bill number 22-39 to appropriate $50,000 from the Rhode Island Municipal Scholarship Foundation Reserve Account, specifically under Business Unit 2301, and for other purposes, pre-filed by myself. And if I may continue.
All right, go ahead.
Introducing House Local Bill 22-40 to appropriate $50,000 from the poker licensing fee account, specifically under Business Unit 3302 and for other purposes. Also pre-filed by myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Donald Manglonia. Any other members would like to introduce a number local bill? Recognize the Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple unnumbered local bills. I ask the indulgence of the members. First one is to appropriate $2,644,000 from revenues collected pursuant to Saipan Local Law 11-2 as amended and for other purposes. May I, Mr. Speaker? The second one is to appropriate up to $801,544 from the 3rd Senatorial District Developers Infrastructure Tax Fund and for other purposes. And the last one is to appropriate unobligated funds under Saipan Local Law 22-10 and for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's introduced by myself and several others, and I welcome all the members from the Saipan and Northern Islands Legislative Delegation to join in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
No objection.
Yeah, no objection. Thank you, Vice Speaker. Any other member would like to introduce unnumbered local bills? This is the time. All right, we'll Go ahead and proceed. Item C, we have none under House Legislative Initiatives. We'll move down to item number 5, introduction of resolutions. And I recognize Representative Joseph Lipon Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to officially introduce a House resolution to honor and commend retired Command Sergeant Major Martin Adda Manglonia for his lengthy and highly respectable service in the United States Army and for his numerous contributions to the Marianas Island. Mr. Speaker, if there's no objection, I'd like to introduce this as committee as a whole.
No objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Lipon. And with no objections too, we'll place this on today's resolution calendar for action. Any other resolutions, colleagues? Okay, with none, we'll go ahead and move down to item C under resolutions. We have none. Item D, we have none. Move down to messages from the governor, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 6, we have messages from the governor. We have Governor's Communication 22-162 through 22-170. 22-170 has been amended to be included in today's agenda.
Thank you, clerk. Discussions under governor's communication. I recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. This is on Governor's Communication 22-162, informing the House that he vetoed House Bill 2280. This bill, colleagues, proposes to enable the Commonwealth to join the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact, or PsyPact, which would improve and expand access to mental health services for CNMI residents. The bill passed the House and the Senate unanimously, with strong support expressed by the Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation, the Community Guidance Center, licensed psychologists in private practice, the Healthcare Professions Licensing Board, and other advocates. They expressed this support in oral and written testimony at multiple public meetings. We passed this bill, colleagues, because we recognized the serious mental health crisis that is facing our community, especially in light of multiple and traumatic typhoon disasters and the far-reaching impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mental health providers told us they have a tremendous caseload, long wait times for people who really need help. And while we work to build capacity here in the CNMI, there is an avenue available to us right now through PsyPact that would make it easier for licensed providers in other jurisdictions that are members of PsyPact to provide services through telepsychology, as well as through temporary 30-day licenses for in-person practice if an authorized psychologist travels to the CNMI. Governor Torres vetoed this bill, claiming that there is a financial commitment to join PsyPact. And in his veto message, he said the bill does not include information detailing what the estimated annual cost will be to administer PsyPact, nor any funding support via appropriation to support this annual financial commitment. Colleagues, Governor Torres was wrong, and the people of the Marianas should not have to suffer because of it. PsyPact is a legal agreement among participating jurisdictions. There is no annual financial commitment to join PsyPact. The legislation that we passed in the House and the Senate derives from model legislation provided by the PsyPact Commission, and it has already been passed in pretty much identical form in more than 30 other states. Moreover, the Commonwealth will not be administering PsyPact at all. The fact that Governor Torres even described it that way shows how little he understands about how PsyPact works, how little he understood this legislation, and how little he bothered to do his homework. Because if he cared about mental health and if he had any questions about how PsyPact works, all he had to do was ask. He could have read the committee reports that the House and Senate approved. He could have consulted with any of the mental health providers in the Marianas who have advocated for this bill. He could have checked with the Healthcare Professions Licensing Board or called or emailed the PsyPact Commission. And he didn't do any of that. He just vetoed the bill. And I'd like to read into the record excerpts of a statement issued by 4 licensed psychologists practicing in the CNMI. This is Dr. Ann Earhart, Dr. Adrian Bren, Dr. Amanda Hughes, and Dr. Janet McCullough in response to Governor Torres's veto to address any confusion about SIPACT. And they wrote, quote, "First, this is not a program that the CNMI administers. It is a legal agreement between participating states and territories to allow already licensed psychologists to provide services into other participating states and territories. The governing body is the SIPACT Commission, and every participating state and territory has a representative on that commission." They go on to say, "The costs associated with SIPACT are truly minimal. Any necessary travel by the CNMI SIPACT representative is paid for by the SIPACT Commission. There are no costs to the CNMI for any licensed psychologist from another state or territory who is authorized under SIPACT to practice here. There is a state assessment fee of $10 for any licensed psychologist here who participated in the compact. If no CNMI licensed psychologists participate, there is no fee. There are currently 6 licensed psychologists in the CNMI. If all of us chose to become authorized under SIPACT, the cost to the CNMI would be $60. Most states pay this fee, but it could be passed on to the authorized psychologists, resulting in no cost to the CNMI. Any SIPACT authorized psychologist pays their own application fees. That's it. There are no other costs to the CNMI. In closing, these licensed psychologists said, "We are completely in support of having more licensed psychologists, more local licensed psychologists. In fact, Dr. Jennifer Maratita, Dr. Amanda Hughes, and Dr. Glenda George have returned to the CNMI to practice here. While capacity is building, though, we have an urgent, unmet need for services that SIPACT can help meet." Colleagues, Governor Torres was gravely mistaken and misguided when he vetoed this bill. And again, our people should not have to suffer for that. I respectfully ask that we correct that error and exercise our constitutional authority today to override that veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina. I recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. I'd just like to piggyback on what Representative Saban was saying, mainly because I think about the recent bill that was passed in the Education Committee, trying to expand scholarship opportunities for people who are seeking degrees in these fields of behavioral health sciences, and how until that time that the scholarship is fully implemented and we can start harvesting the graduates of those programs, we need to make sure that we have something in the interim in that transition. And the SIPACT bill that I hope that we can all override today will be part of that transitional phase. Because if we wait to address the mental health needs of our community now, we will have a bigger problem in the long run, because it's not going to wait for the degrees to come home. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Floor is still open. Recognize Representative Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too support overriding this veto from the governor. And thank you, Rep. Sablan and Rep. Staffler, for that information, especially the support from licensed professionals here in the CNMI. This is about access. It's about access to mental health services. And growing up in a household where mental health was an issue, where my mother was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder when I was 10 years old, we had access to mental health services that really positively impacted my family and my mother. And today, I am a recipient of services as well. I was on a waiting list for over 1 year to receive counseling services, and now I've been seeing a therapist for over a year, and it's all been virtually. And it's been wonderful. It's been a great way to organize thoughts, to process experiences and interactions, to have someone there who's a professional who can really guide you through these processes that we didn't learn in school. And so having this network now expand virtually for our community is going to be tremendous. It will be so valuable, especially during this time where we are experiencing a lot of trauma from COVID, from natural disasters, and from generational trauma. You know, a community that was raised by survivors of the war. You can see a lot of that that impact come into fruition and manifested in forms of addiction and harm to one another, even in the way we think and speak of one another. And so I completely support overriding this veto and support my colleagues, and I ask for your support as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babauta. Floor still open for recognized Representative Yankton.
I just want to share that we just came back, some of us came back from the APIL, which was in Pohnpei, held in Pohnpei. And the CNMI also introduced resolutions that deals with mental health care, mental health services. And we also, the other one is the one on broadband to connect the areas that are in the APIO or the Blue Continent to be just like the SciPac thing, you know, where we just contact via the internet. So it's good, and I support this bill.
Thank you, Representative Yankton. Floor is still open. Okay, with that, I'd like to recognize the floor leader for the motion to override.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and without an objection from the members, I offer a motion to override House Bill number 22-80 under Governor's Communication 22-162. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to override the veto message under Governor's Communication 22-162 regarding House Bill number 22-80, and it has been seconded. I know there were comments before this motion, but any further discussions before I call the vote? Ready? Just a reminder, members, it's a 2/3 requirement. So that's at least 14. I now recognize the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Aktal,
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta,
Hunggan.
Representative Sheila Babauta,
Again,
Representative Joel Komatsu,
Hunggan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu,
Yes.
Representative Mapan, Representative Flores,
Yes.
Representative Guerrero, Representative Lozama,
Yes.
Representative Magovnia, Representative Mengolonia,
Yes.
Representative Probst,
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan,
Yes.
Representative Jean Paul Sablan,
Hunggan.
Representative Nicolas,
Okay.
Representative Staffler,
Ungan.
Representative Yankton,
Yes.
Representative Yumo.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
Awed.
Mr. Speaker, all 19 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With all 19 members voting yes, the motion to override hereby passes. Thank you, colleagues. And with the suspension of rules, there's a new communication added, Governor's Communication 22-170. We're still under Governor's Communication, so any further discussions or comments? Recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleagues who have tried to help appropriate money to the Kegman Watershed time and time again, including today. Thank you, Vice Speaker. I much appreciate it. I just want to advocate again for why this is important. These allocations have been vetoed 3 times, once in April, once in July, and most recently in our budget. The reason given every time for the veto is that there's convoluted language that they're sharing saying that they want assurances from the feds that this project will be prioritized. I know that after U.S. Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill in March, the Kagman Watershed was one of the highly prioritized projects by the USDA and NRCS because they really want it off their books. CNMI applied to get support from this. Actually, I did more research in 1987. Okay, we weren't even in high school yet, many of us at this table, or maybe born. But the fact is that this project has been part of the fed's project list since that time, and it only actually begun in 1998, and now it's 2022. There were 9 phases of this project, and there's only 3 phases left. Because this project has been so long going, the feds said, okay, we're gonna prioritize by reorganizing it and recalibrating what the plan's going to be. So they actually met with all of our partners here in the CNMI, who showed up to the meeting, to share that plan. It had 3 phases. 3 years or 4 years to completion. And the first 3 years would be fully funded by the federal government in the planning and the designing. Fully funded, 100% will be paid by the federal government. And what we needed to pay in year 4, which is in 2027, would be a 25% match, which is only 3.2 million. Between now and then, I know that we can find money to save and squirrel away to meet that small match. But this project, when it is completed, what it will do is not only just finish the floodplains that had been mitigated since 2003. Remember, people in Cagman, when that area there by the breadfruit plantation was so flooded you couldn't drive your cars? That was the part of the phase that's done. The other part that isn't done is where that water will go last. And that's to the irrigation that will help all the farmers who need water in the Cagman area. Not to mention that it would fill up a whole reservoir of 100 million gallons of water that could be used in emergency times, although it is prioritized for farmers. And so this measly $80,000 that we've been trying to appropriate to just give the Soil and Water Conservation District some operational money so that they can maintain these areas that have been overgrowing since the pandemic, so that we can get into these phases, so that we can finalize these plans. This is revenue generating, but it continues to be vetoed for just $80,000. I humbly ask the Senate to please let this pass through. Let us get this project through. I humbly ask the governor to sign this bill so that we can finish this project. The NRCS asked for commitment since March. We, CNMI government, didn't respond until August. We need to prioritize these projects if we really want to help farmers, if we really want to become food sustainable. Yeah, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Floor is still open for discussions under Governor's communication. All right, recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is on Governor's Communication 22-170 on the so-called SOCA that he is inviting you, Mr. Speaker, to attend. The last time Governor Torres delivered an actual State of the Commonwealth address was 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and that was also right before a general election. But that time, and in all previous times for the State of the Commonwealth, the governor's address was delivered before an official joint session of the legislature called by the presiding officers of the House and the Senate. And there was actual coordination between the executive branch and the legislative branch to plan the event. And it was at a public venue that was accessible and open to the public, like the multipurpose center. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, none of that is taking place this week. There is no joint session. There is no coordination between the branches. It's going to be at one of the most expensive hotels on the island, and clearly not everybody is invited. You know, previous governors were mature enough to be able to stand in front of all legislators, even those who criticized them, to report on the state of the Commonwealth and present their plans and vision for the future. Because, colleagues, they were adults, and that's how democracy works. We're never going to agree on everything, but we can and we should still be able to gather cordially in a room to discuss our issues and figure out how we can work together to solve our problems. So I don't think we can call whatever is happening on Friday an official State of the Commonwealth address in light of all these circumstances. And with just 2 weeks to go before early voting starts, it looks and feels and sounds and smells like another tourist campaign event at taxpayer expense. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Floor is still open for discussions under Governor's communication. Recognize Representative Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. And I think Rep. Tina Sablan pretty much summed up exactly how I feel, my own sentiments. I just wanted to ask, Mr. Speaker, this letter was addressed to you. Mr. Speaker, were you invited to the budget signing by the governor? Okay.
No.
Was the chairman of Ways and Means, Donald Manglonia, invited to the budget signing? No, he wasn't. Were any of the leadership, House leadership, or any of the members of the Ways and Means that were responsible for working so diligently and hard on the budget invited? Okay, so I had heard through what I read that the governor did not invite you, Mr. Speaker, or Chairman Donald or others because you do not believe in his leadership. That was a direct quote. Vice Speaker, I also, were you invited? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. So you guys weren't invited, but for this so-called SOCA, you are invited. So he picks and chooses what he wants you to attend, if only. So I'm just curious, did he communicate with you or any other besides this letter? Okay, I'm just wondering what it comes with because this is very strange and it is unprecedented. If you look, you can look at the State of the Union. The President of the United States gives a State of the Union address. He doesn't say, I only want Democrats there. I don't want Republicans. No. No, because he's an adult. He's not a baby. He's an adult. When other governors in other territories and jurisdictions, state governors, when they give the State of the State address, and it's annual, not right before an election every 4 years, hey, I'm going for a re-election. So they have a State of the State address, they have their addresses, and they invite everybody, because everybody has a seat at the table during that speech. Now, again, as to what Rep. Tina Sablan had said, we may not agree on issues, we may strongly disagree on policy and other things. But to ensure that certain factions or certain people, legislators are not invited, is a slap in the face of democracy itself. You know, we we take a lot of hits, a lot. I know, get it all the time. But yet we sit here together, this body. We disagree, we're on different parties, and we still are cordial and civil and kind to one another. Not just here, but outside. When we see each other and we greet each other, I believe there's sincerity in those greetings. This is unprecedented, extremely disappointing, and purely political. To pretend that we are not in a financial crisis or that we will not face one soon when ARPA funding runs out is dishonest. And we are pretending that everything is perfect when it is not. What we will hear on Friday, no doubt, will be just that. It's not a State of the Commonwealth address. It's not giving a true portrayal of our cash flow projections, our actual financial situation, and what the future looks like. there will be no mention of the fact that there will be furloughs. Anybody in this Commonwealth who believes that somehow miraculously after ARPA funding dries out without help and aid from the feds, we're going to somehow miraculously be able to support every job, including 2,000 new hires, is fooling themselves because money doesn't grow on tangan and it doesn't fall from the sky. Our gift, we have been given a once in a lifetime gift with ARPA. And how has that spending gone on? So, to be honest, I'm okay with not being invited. Because I don't know if I could sit through and stomach the lies that we will hear. The fact that this ARPA funding is unilaterally decided upon by one man whose own party did not even vote for it is a slap in the face of everyone. That none of us, have any input as to how ARPA can be spent. I alone am the decider. You can't come for the budget signing because you don't support my leadership. Reminds me of when I was a kid, we played basketball, and this one kid, he was losing on his team. He grabbed the basketball and said, I'm going home because I'm losing and you guys aren't letting me win. He was a baby. We're adults. It's time to act like adults. If you want to deliver a State of the Commonwealth address, do it properly, do it customarily, with respect of our speaker, whether you agree with him or not, Mr. Governor. You can't just support and include a Senate President without our House Speaker. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Probst. Floor is still open for recognized Representative Patrick San Nicolas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is in regards to Chairman Props. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning, it's all criticism here in this House about the governor. It's all criticism. Where was Congressman Props during all those times that we need to have help? Criticism towards the governor, it's always been customary here in the House. Instead of criticizing the governor, why don't you lay out a plan to develop the Commonwealth? Instead of criticizing the governor, lay out a plan to offer something that we need here in the Sinamay. This is already too much. There's no offerings or no plans for Congressman Props to offer of our economy here. Governor Torres is doing by himself since Typhoon U2. He sacrificed his family, his children, going on the front line during the pandemic. Dalay da tisinya hit ginaman na manakomprende ni ji todo i governor at chochogin manusinya ni parata na molik maranas. Na ini si mungkin si Congressman Props doja plan ni parata na molik maranas. Yeah. Go ahead.
Members, I'm gonna end this discussion, okay? And I'm gonna call
Go ahead.
and I'm gonna call for a quick recess. Quick recess. taking a recess until 1 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you. We'll go back to recess.